Hey friend, I want you to find a quiet moment, wrap yourself in a soft blanket, and close your eyes. Put aside any worries of the day. Inhale deeply and exhale. Welcome to a place where time slows down and the moonlight is your guide. Tonight, we journey to a world of silent mountains and ancient forests, where every star holds a story. Prepare to drift into a land where the quietest whispers hold the most profound truths. Your journey to peaceful sleep begins now. The Tale of Poseidon and the Humble City. The moon hung high in the inky sky, a silver disk casting long, ethereal shadows across the waves of the Aegean Sea. A gentle breeze, scented with salt and a distant hint of cypress, whispered over the tranquil water, carrying with it the soft, rhythmic sound of waves lapping against the shore. Tonight, we journey not to the realm of mortals, but to the breathtaking, silent world that lies beneath the surface, a world of shimmering coral palaces and ancient magic, ruled by the mighty Poseidon. Close your eyes, let your breath slow, and allow the gentle cadence of this tale to carry you to a place of deep and restful sleep. Long before the world knew the towering spires of distant cities or the endless glow of electric lights, when gods walked among mortals and the very earth felt alive with their power, there existed a realm of breathtaking beauty and untamed fury beneath the endless expanse of the sea. This was the kingdom of Poseidon, one of the 12 great Olympians, brother to the mighty Zeus who ruled the heavens, and Hades who held dominion over the shadowy underworld. Poseidon was a figure of immense power, his presence as vast and unpredictable as the oceans he commanded. Imagine him now, in your mind's eye. A figure of imposing stature, his beard long and flowing like sea foam, often depicted with a wild tangle that mirrored the untamed waves. His eyes, the color of a stormy sea just before the tempest breaks, could be both calming and terrifying in their intensity. When angered, those depths would churn with unimaginable fury, reflecting the wrath of the ocean itself. His palace, a marvel of shimmering coral and gleaming pearls, lay in the deepest trenches of the Aegean Sea. Picture it now, bathed in the soft, ethereal glow that filters down through miles of water. The journey to his domain was a gentle descent through layers of ever-darkening blue, past schools of vibrant fish whose scales flashed like scattered jewels, past ancient shipwrecks turned into new, living reefs, their wooden bones draped in sea anemones and colorful sponges. Deeper still, where the light of the sun was only a forgotten memory, the palace would appear, a silent city of light. Its walls were crafted from living coral, its towers spiraling gracefully towards the surface. Archways were carved from the skeletal remains of giant sea creatures, and courtyards were paved with perfectly smooth, polished shells. Here, in this silent, subaquatic realm, Poseidon often retreated to contemplate the affairs of his watery kingdom and the world above. He would sit upon his throne, a majestic seat carved from a single, enormous conch shell, and watch the silent dance of the sea life through the palace's crystal walls. The slow, graceful movements of a whale in the distance, the synchronized shimmer of a passing school of fish, the gentle sway of kelp forests and the currents, all of these brought him a sense of profound peace. It was a world of perfect, quiet harmony, a world he had crafted with his very essence. His power was vast and far-reaching. With a mere flick of his mighty wrist, wielding his legendary trident, a three-pronged spear of immense magical force, he could stir the calmest seas into raging tempests. Waves as tall as mountains would rise at his command, crashing against the shores with deafening roars. Conversely, with a gentle downward thrust of the trident, he could quell the fiercest storms, calming the turbulent waters to a glassy stillness that mirrored the tranquil night sky. Sailors, their lives constantly at the mercy of the unpredictable sea, held him in a mixture of reverence and fear, offering prayers for safe passage and swift returns. His influence extended beyond the waters themselves. He was also known as the Earthshaker, for with a powerful strike of his trident upon the land, he could unleash earthquakes that would tremble the very foundations of mountains and cities. One day, as Poseidon surveyed his vast domain from his coral palace, a subtle unease rippled through the waters. It was a disharmony, a faint tremor that spoke not of geological forces, but of something stirring in the hearts of mortals. He sensed a growing arrogance in some of the coastal cities, a forgetfulness of the power that lay beneath their shores, a disregard for the delicate balance between land and sea. In one such city, a prosperous port known as Ethel, the merchants had grown wealthy from their maritime trade. Their ships, sleek and swift, sailed to distant lands, bringing back treasures and riches that filled their coffers. But with their wealth came a pride that bordered on hubris. They boasted of their mastery over the sea, speaking as if the ocean were their servant, a mere highway for their ambitions. They erected grand statues to themselves along the harbor, their backs turned to the sea, seemingly forgetting the true source of their prosperity. Poseidon watched this from his underwater realm, a shadow of displeasure darkening his usually turbulent gaze. He understood the nature of mortals, their fleeting lives, their boundless ambition, and their tendency to forget the powers that lay beyond their control. Their forgetfulness was a small thing, a quiet ripple in the vast ocean of time, but it was a ripple that could grow into a destructive wave. A gentle reminder, he thought, might be in order. He did not seek to punish, but to teach. He yearned for the world to find a harmony with his domain, not to conquer it. He believed that even the most stubborn heart could be guided by a whisper, by a hint of the truth. He summoned a minor sea spirit, a nimble naiad named Simone, whose hair flowed like seaweed and whose laughter echoed like the gentle lapping of waves on the sand. "Simone," he commanded, his voice a low rumble that resonated through the coral walls, "go to the city of Ethel. Observe their ways and listen to their boasts. Report back to me what you see and hear." Simone, swift as a dolphin, darted through the water and soon reached the bustling harbor of Ethel. She hid amongst the seaweed-draped pilings, her form shimmering and blending with the marine life, and watched the mortals go about their business. She heard their proud pronouncements, their dismissive talk of the sea, and saw their ostentatious displays of wealth. The air in the harbor was thick with their arrogance, a scent that was as unpleasant to Simone as the stench of stagnant water. She returned to Poseidon's palace and relayed all that she had witnessed. The sea god listened patiently, his expression growing sterner with each word. It was not simply pride, he realized, but a profound disrespect for the very element that sustained them. The harmony was broken. Poseidon did not act rashly. He understood that true power lay not in immediate destruction, but in a measured response that would teach a lasting lesson. He decided to send a warning, a gentle nudge to remind the people of Ethel of the sea's true nature. One night, as the city slept soundly, Poseidon rose from his coral throne and extended his mighty trident. With a slow, deliberate movement, he plunged it into the sandy seabed of his palace floor. A ripple of energy spread outwards, traveling through the underwater currents and reaching the shores of Ethel. The first sign was subtle. The tide, which usually followed its predictable rhythm, began to behave erratically. It would recede further than usual, revealing stretches of sandy bottom that had been submerged for generations, and then it would surge higher, lapping at the very edges of the city walls. The fishermen found their nets empty, the familiar patterns of the sea life disrupted. A sense of unease began to creep into the hearts of the people. Then came the dreams. Many citizens of Ethel began to have vivid, unsettling dreams of a colossal wave, dark and towering, looming over their city. They would wake in a cold sweat, their hearts pounding, with a lingering sense of dread that they couldn't shake. The soothsayers and wise women of the city spoke of omens and the displeasure of the sea god, but the proud merchants dismissed their warnings as superstitious nonsense. They laughed away the dreams, calling them the fancies of tired minds. They continued to build their grand statues, to launch their proud ships, their ears deafened by their own arrogance. Poseidon watched, his stormy eyes fixed on the distant shores. He had offered a gentle reminder, but it seemed their ears were deafened by their own arrogance. A deeper lesson was needed. One fateful morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, a low, rumbling sound echoed across the sea. It was not the sound of thunder, for the sky was clear. It was a deeper, more primal sound, a groan from the very belly of the earth beneath the waves. The sea began to churn, its surface no longer reflecting the peaceful sky but turning it dark, ominous green. Waves, larger than any seen before, began to rise on the horizon, their crests capped with angry white foam. The fishermen who were out at sea desperately tried to turn their small vessels back to harbor, but the speed and ferocity of the growing storm were overwhelming. The people of Ethel rushed to the harbor walls, their boasts of mastery over the sea now replaced with cries of fear. They watched in horror as the colossal waves approached, growing larger with each passing moment, like liquid mountains marching towards their city. Poseidon stood in his coral palace, his trident held high. His expression was not one of malice, but of stern justice. He was not seeking to destroy, but to remind, to restore the balance that had been so carelessly disregarded. The first wave crashed against the harbor walls with a thunderous roar, sending spray high into the air. Ships were tossed about like toys, splintering against the stone quays. The water surged into the lower parts of the city, flooding homes and businesses. Panic gripped the populace as they realized the true power of the sea god. But this was just the beginning. Poseidon, with another deliberate movement of his trident, unleashed a second, even larger wave. This one crashed over the harbor walls, inundating the city with a churning torrent of salt water. Statues of proud merchants were toppled, their arrogant faces swallowed by the unforgiving sea. The foundations of their grand buildings trembled as the earth beneath them began to shake. The ground beneath Ethel heaved and groaned. With a mighty strike of his trident deep into the seabed, Poseidon unleashed an earthquake that rippled through the city. Buildings crumbled, streets cracked open, and the very land seemed to buckle under the force of the earthshaker's wrath. The people of Ethel, their pride shattered, now cried out in despair. They huddled on higher ground, watching as their magnificent city was ravaged by the combined fury of the sea and the land. They finally understood that the ocean was not their servant, but a powerful, untamed force to be respected and honored. Poseidon watched the destruction, his stormy gaze softening slightly. His point had been made. The arrogance of Ethel had been washed away by the sea, their hubris humbled by the earth's tremor. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered his trident. The waves began to subside, the earth ceased its shaking. The storm clouds that had gathered overhead began to dissipate, revealing a bruised but still present sun. The city of Ethel was not entirely destroyed, but it was irrevocably changed. The grand harbor was in ruins, many buildings lay in rubble, and the proud statues were scattered and broken. The survivors, humbled and fearful, now looked to the sea with a newfound respect. They understood the power they had so carelessly disregarded. Poseidon turned and retreated back to his coral palace, the gentle currents of the deep sea offering a sense of calm after the unleashed fury. He had taught a lesson, a harsh but necessary one. The balance had been restored, the power of the sea acknowledged. And as the waters around Ethel slowly calmed, a new understanding settled in the hearts of the people. They began to offer prayers and sacrifices to Poseidon, not out of fear alone, but out of a genuine reverence for the mighty god who ruled the waves and shook the earth. They learned that true prosperity came not from arrogance, but from living in harmony with the powerful forces of the world around them. And so, as the gentle waves now lap peacefully against the shores, and the stars twinkle softly above the vast ocean, remember the tale of Poseidon and the city of Ethel. Let it be a reminder of the immense power that lies beneath the surface, a power that demands respect and humility. Close your eyes now, and let the rhythmic sound of the waves carry you away to a night of deep and restful sleep. The mighty Poseidon watches over his domain, and in his vast and powerful presence, may you find peace. Sweet dreams. The village of fading stars. Let your mind drift to the serene village of Fireside, a place where every night was a celebration of light and shadow. In this village, tucked away between two gentle, rolling mountains, the people had a cherished tradition that stretched back to the beginning of time. They were the keepers of the flame, a community that celebrated the quiet glow of lanterns and the warm, golden light of their great communal bonfire. This fire, which burned in the center of the village square, was the heart of their home, its steady glow a beacon of safety and a symbol of their enduring spirit. In this village lived a young man named Elias. Unlike the other villagers who found comfort in the warm, familiar light of their own fires, Elias was a watcher of the sky. Every night, while the others gathered around the bonfire to tell stories and sing quiet songs, Elias would retreat to the highest hill overlooking the village. He would lie on his back, wrapped in a thick blanket woven from the softest wool, and gaze up at the vast, star-filled expanse. The stars, to him, were not just pinpricks of light, they were ancient, silent storytellers, their patterns and constellations whispering tales of time and distance. The stillness of the night and the silent glow of the constellations filled him with a profound sense of peace. But for some time now, a subtle, creeping change had settled over Fireside. It was a change so gradual that most of the villagers had not yet noticed it, or had dismissed it as a passing oddity. The great bonfire, which had always burned with a fierce and vibrant warmth, seemed a little dimmer. The lanterns that lined the paths of the village seemed to cast a little less light. The air, which had always felt so warm and comforting near the fires, now held a faint, lingering chill. But for Elias, who saw the world in terms of light and shadow, the change was unmistakable and deeply unsettling. The stars themselves were dimming. The constellations he knew so well seemed to have lost their brilliant sparkle, and the vast, swirling river of light that cut across the night sky, the one they called the Great Celestial River, now looked like a faint, washed-out memory of its former self. Elias felt a deep sadness in his heart. The loss of the starlight was not just a physical thing, it was a loss of the quiet magic that had always filled their lives. The stories the elders told seemed to have lost their warmth, and the songs they sang sounded a little hollow. The people of Fireside, who had always looked to the heavens for guidance and comfort, now kept their gazes fixed on the ground, their lives becoming a little smaller, a little colder. One evening, as Elias sat with the oldest elder of the village, a man whose face was as wise and craggy as the mountains themselves, he finally spoke of his sorrow. "Elder Theron," he said, his voice a quiet whisper, "the stars are fading. Our fires are losing their warmth. The light is leaving us." Elder Theron looked at him with eyes that held the deep, peaceful wisdom of 100 lifetimes. He took a long, slow breath, and his voice was a low, gentle rumble. "The stories say that when the people of the valley forget to truly see the stars forget to shine for them. It is a gift given to those who appreciate its silent, distant beauty. When their hearts grow too busy with the light they themselves have made, the celestial river begins to run dry." He then spoke of a very old legend, a tale almost forgotten in the hustle and bustle of daily life. High on the highest mountain, on a peak that was forever shrouded in a light mist, there was a sacred place known as the Star Well. It was a small, quiet pool of water, so clear and pure that it held the reflection of every star in the sky, even in the brightest daylight. The stars would descend from the heavens and drink from the well, replenishing their light and their gentle stories. The well was tended by a solitary guardian, a being of pure starlight who waited patiently for a heart worthy enough to see the truth. But the path to the Star Well was a difficult one. The old stories spoke of a creeping shadow that had fallen over the way, a place of tangled whispers and silent echoes that could confuse even the most determined traveler. Elias knew in his heart what he had to do. He would make the pilgrimage to the Star Well. He did not take a sword or a compass. He did not need a map, for he would follow the feeling in his heart. He took only a small flask of water, a pouch of dried berries, and a small, smooth stone he had found by the river. He would use the stone as a compass, for it held the memory of the flowing water and the deep, abiding patience of the land. His journey began at the very edge of the valley, just as the last hints of dawn were painting the sky in soft hues of rose and lavender. The path wound slowly upward, disappearing into a forest of ancient, silent trees. He walked with a quiet, deliberate pace, his footsteps a gentle crunch on the forest floor. He focused on the feeling of the cool, damp earth beneath his feet, the faint scent of decaying leaves and wet soil. He listened to the soft hoot of a distant owl, a sound that was a part of the forest's quiet song. He felt the subtle shift in the air as he moved from a sunlit clearing to the deep shade of a grove of pines. The journey was long and deliberate. Elias did not rush. He did not worry about how far he had to go. He simply focused on each quiet step, each small observation. He would find a quiet spot by a stream to rest, and he would simply sit and listen to the water's gentle murmur, watching the way it flowed over smooth stones, its sound a peaceful, constant lullaby. He felt the coolness of the moss against his skin and watched a quiet beetle make its way across a leaf. His heart felt more and more at peace, and he felt his own spirit weaving itself into the fabric of the forest. After many hours of walking, the path disappeared, and he entered a part of the forest that felt different. It was a place of tangled whispers, where the leaves seemed to rustle even when there was no wind. He felt a quiet sense of unease, a feeling that he was lost in a maze of murmuring secrets. He heard faint whispers that seemed to call his name, twisting and turning in the air, trying to lure him from his path. He knew this was the shadow the elder had spoken of. He did not panic. He simply stopped, closed his eyes, and listened to the feeling of the air. He listened to the sound of his own calm breath. He remembered the feeling of the still night sky, the silent gaze of the stars. He took a single step, not with his feet, but with his heart, and the whispers quieted. He moved forward, his path lit not by the sun, but by the calm light of his inner spirit. He walked through a field of silent echoes where every step he took seemed to be absorbed by the air, as if he were walking in a place where sound itself had no meaning. This was a place of profound stillness, and it tested his resolve. He felt a strange loneliness, a sense of being completely alone in a vast, empty silence. He did not falter. He simply put one foot in front of the other, his own slow, steady rhythm a comfort in the stillness. He remembered the quiet companionship of the moon and the stars, and he knew that even in this great silence, he was not alone. He walked through the field, and with each step, he found a deeper sense of peace, a quiet strength that came from within. Finally, after what felt like an age of quiet wandering and silent tests, the path began to steepen. The trees grew sparser, and the air grew thin and cold. The ground became rocky, and her footsteps echoed with a more hollow sound. This was the ascent to the mountain peak, and as he climbed, he felt the great, solid presence of the mountain all around him. The air smelled of clean, cold rock and distant pine. He saw an eagle soaring on the wind, a silent, powerful presence, and he felt a profound respect for its quiet strength. He saw the way a small wildflower grew from a crack in the stone, its delicate petals a splash of brilliant color against the harsh gray. Even here, in this quiet, solitary place, there was beauty and life. At last, he reached the mountain summit. Below him, the world was a vast, sprawling quilt of greens and browns, the tiny village of Fireside a distant, almost forgotten speck. But he did not linger there. His eyes were drawn to a small, hidden hollow just beyond the peak, a place where the wind did not reach. And in the center of that hollow, bathed in an otherworldly glow, was the star well. It was not a roaring waterfall or a turbulent pool, but a small, still pool of water, perfectly round, perfectly clear. It was a mirror that reflected the endless night sky, even though the sun was now beginning to set. In its depths, Elias could see every star, every constellation, every nebula, all shimmering with a brilliant light that seemed to pulse with a slow, steady rhythm. And beside the well, a quiet figure sat, a being of pure, luminous starlight, its form a gentle, shimmering glow. This was the guardian of the stars. Elias approached slowly, his heart filled with a quiet reverence. He felt no fear, only a deep sense of understanding. The guardian did not move as he drew closer, their presence a part of the profound stillness of the place. The guardians slowly raised their head. Their face was a gentle, shifting light, and their eyes were the deep, quiet color of the cosmos itself. Their voice, when it came, was not a sound but a feeling, a quiet thought that settled into Elias's mind. "I am the keeper of the stars," the thought said. "The hearts of your people have grown too busy with their own light. They have forgotten to look up. The stars grow dim because they are not being seen. Elias looked at the still, reflecting water of the well. "What must I do?" he whispered, his voice as soft as the cool night air. The guardian gestured to the stars reflected in the water. "You must show me that you truly understand. You must show me that you can see not just their light, but their deep, abiding quiet. You must hear the silence of the stars." Elias knew that this was not a challenge of words or of actions. He sat down by the well, crossed his legs, and closed his eyes. He took a deep, calming breath, and he let his mind become as vast and as still as the night sky itself. He let go of the sounds of the world, of the wind on the mountaintop, of the distant echoes of his journey. He went to a place of pure, perfect silence. He remembered the feeling of lying on the hill overlooking his village, his body still, his mind empty, his heart open. He remembered the feeling of the stars, their quiet, patient gaze, their vast, silent stories. He didn't just remember them, he felt them. He felt the quiet hum of 100 constellations. He felt the distant, silent light of 1,000 galaxies. He felt the deep quiet of the universe, and in that moment, he knew he was not just seeing the stars, he was a part of them. He had heard their silence. A quiet sense of satisfaction settled into Elias's mind. "You have not forgotten," the guardian's thought said. "You have not just seen their light, you have felt their truth. You have awakened the memory of the stars." The guardian rose and reached out, touching the still, reflecting water of the star well. And as their hand connected with the water, the quiet magic began to stir. A faint, gentle shimmer spread across the surface of the well, and a single, pure mote of starlight rose from the water, pulsing with a gentle, brilliant light. It was the heart of the stars. The guardian gently cupped the mote of light in their hand and offered it to Elias. "Carry this light back to your people," the guardian's thought said. "It is not a solution, but a memory. It is a seed. Plant it in your hearts, and the light will return." Elias took the mote of light in his hand. It was not warm, but it held a cool, brilliant glow that seemed to calm his very soul. He walked back down the mountain, the quiet melody of the stars in his heart, and with each step, the world around him seemed to sing with a new, quiet joy. The green of the leaves was deeper, the blue of the sky was more pure, and even in the shade, there was a feeling of soft, quiet light. When he arrived back in Fireside, the sun had set, and the village was a collection of dim, quiet shadows. He walked to the great bonfire in the center of the village, a fire that was now nothing more than a few smoldering embers. The villagers were gathered around, their faces tired and worried in the faint light. Elias walked to the fire and, with a silent reverence, placed the mote of starlight into the embers. For a long, quiet moment, nothing happened. Then, a single, brilliant spark shot up from the embers, followed by another and another. The flames of the bonfire began to rise, slowly at first, and then with a gentle, vibrant glow that lit up the entire village. The warmth spread out, and the air filled with the scent of pure fire and ancient magic. The people looked up, and for the first time in a long time, they saw the sky not as a dark, empty space, but as a vast, magnificent canvas filled with the brilliant, silent glow of 1,000 stars. They remembered to see, and the stars remembered to shine. And in that moment, in the village of Fireside, the quiet, peaceful harmony of the world was restored. Sweet dreams.